Ladies and Germans, how are you all doing? This is Con Ulrich.
I'm Angru, low, low, low.
And folks, we are returning you to some more SD2 season action in the league. Today on Shell, long lost map. I feel like we haven't seen it a fair chunk of time. But Rang, who's fighting here and what are they bringing on in?
Where we have a rather thematic matchup today, as on the left-hand side. In the blue, we have ourselves Shaun playing as the first Fauci division with a balanced income. On the right-hand side, in the red, we have a high chance of being Gonzo. I'm not entirely sure. I need to check my sources if this is in fact Gonzo or an impersonator. Nonetheless, he's playing second New Zealand, but with a juggernaut income, which is a surprise.
You know, I'm kind of excited to see that. I mean, we're looking at the decks here, and I'm sure your folks at the home can see it as well. Not too weird in how these decks are going to be set up. Of course, the second New Zealand just going to bury you in Oplates, although I would love to see more Maori on there. And the first Flushing Maker is just going to play some really, really solid infantry kind of action. But why the heck might he be picking Juggernaut? Is there any kind of idea that you can think about there?
Right now, the meta is definitely shifted towards balance in regards to longer games. So it's a little bit more risky being Juggernaut, as that B phase definitely hurts you quite a bit. But if you can survive and do well in that time, especially if matches are going longer, you're just going to be doing much better with that extra 20 points over balanced income. So, I mean, right now balance is the key meta, but we could maybe see... It'd be funny to see Juggernaut become the new meta, or I kind of doubt it.
Oh, playing for the late game?
Yeah, playing, like, all for late game. Which would be kind of cool.
It absolutely would be. I would love to see just huge tank battles at the end of it, as opposed to being like, oh yes, let's go and just bring in waves and hordes of infantry. But I imagine, I get the feeling that Juggernaut's going to work better for divisions that are specifically not Russian. Because I feel like Russians, just the infantry generally is just strong all around.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Oh, it's like... Oof, I don't know what you mean. Like, it's not great for, like, Rush divisions or certain Russian divisions. It definitely pays off well if you have, like, a lot of good, like, C-phase expensive stuff, of course. But, actually just getting to the match, I mean, Shaun doing a great job getting into the central hill position with his toss trooping, and up north we're seeing a little bit of skirmishing back and forth. Quite a bit of smoke.
Yeah, and well, you know what they say, where there's smoke, there's flamethrowers. So, we do have a couple squads of flamethrowers up here. Until now, those Fallschirmjägers have been able to keep those diggers, those oplites, and I'm not going to try to go and disrespect my Greek brothers and sisters out there by trying to see what that troop is. But keeping their flamethrower troops back. Down in the south, the Stahlstruppen are being aggressive here, and it's actually, this will be a very interesting matchup. Both squads technically have officer support here. You see the first start kills are going to go over here to the Oplates and their associated flamethrowers just because of the sheer amount of firepower, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, it's just crazy to see this many, like, Faustjäger Stahlstruppen being used. I mean, we don't see first Faustjäger being used all that often, but they're a very cool little infantry squad with, you know, a huge selection of weaponry, including Bren guns and Molotovs, so it's taken a little bit out of the Russian and British textbook here. And Italian, too. It's a very multicultural unit in terms of small arms.
The funny thing about this is that really every single guy in that card was on that hillside. You see, but every single one in that card,
oh yeah,
right on that hillside.
He deployed them all, and it definitely has paid off because he's got that hill. Central hill and shell is a pretty important area to hold. Though Gonzo is pushing through the northern central position here, capturing that farmstead and moving up some Shermans about. The tank battle is definitely going to be quite interesting in this con. As a third Feldjäger, they have a lot of Tigers and a few Jagdpanzers, but not much else in terms of medium armor, and this isn't a great map for heavy tanks. Well, of course, second New Zealand, Sherman spam is going to have a lovely time sneaking around through the forest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to make a quick call out over here to LG42 that's on the hillside. He's been trying to at least contain that outbreak, but there is a Sherman with that 105 that has just, like you just saw it, taken him out immediately.
Yeah. It's just going to come down to the Jagdpanzer trying to engage here.
This kind of brings me up to something, because we're seeing it's a bit more of a conservative start. I mean, we are seeing some action here and there, but for the most part, feels like both players are trying to consolidate their gains before really kind of pushing a little bit further forwards. I know I mentioned to you before we went live here with this, but I had a really great comment kind of come up here about some player styles from some of the replays that we cast last week, specifically AS as a very methodical kind of player. Do you think that the meta right now is a more of an aggressive kind of rush style, or would you say it's a much more of that, well, take it easy and not so much trench warfare it, but like, you know, take very, very deliberate steps forward?
I think rush style is still probably going to be the popular choice, and it does make sense because you want to try to keep your opponent on their toes and, you know, keep doing some sort of offensive maneuvers up north, south, left, and right to try and keep the momentum going. But I definitely feel like there's room, especially now in this more balanced meta, for you to get a wave of slower, steadier, just, you know, defend for the first bit, consolidate, you know, just have a 14 to 10 advantage, and just kind of chill out a bit rather than having to go balls to the wall.
So wait, you say that there's going to be a place for me to play my 352nd bajillion, you know, infantry division again? I can actually play the World War I style. It can work.
You're gonna have like 7 lines of grenadiers, which the enemy are gonna have to break through, and 3 lines of Pack 43s.
Oh, and when you say lines, I'm definitely going to be going for lines. At that point, these guys will be shoulder to shoulder. These are not Stosstrooping. We don't train them in this weird new fashion.
Like
no, we're just
shooting each other.
Exactly. We are actually going to see that. I love seeing this Jagdpanzer being pushed forwards. This is one of those things that, again, we laugh very often about the fact that a lot of these tank destroyers are still, you know, 45, 50-ton roadblocks, but the stealth on them can be very, very considerable. And considering when their tank forces are outnumbered, you know, 4 or 5 to 1, that kind of stealth has to prove rather decisive, I would think, in any potential engagements as we move further and further into this game.
Especially in a map like this where you do have a lot of light forest for you to take advantage of and hide in. And it's going to be very important how Shaun does deploy his Jagdpanzers, as he only has 2 of them. Yeah, he only has 2 of them in his second A phase, just looking at the deck again. And they're very powerful, great armor, good price efficiency. But apart from that, it's going to come down to the Tigers, and that's when things start to get a little bit more expensive.
Well, the other thing that's getting kind of expensive here as well is these Kitty Hawks have been pretty constant. And other than this most recent aborted attack run, they've been, I would say, provisionally rather devastating to a lot of these German positions. I'm surprised that there hasn't been an early call-in here from a fighter plane. We've seen a couple of fighter bombers for sure. I'm surprised there hasn't been more of an active anti-air effort, let's say.
Yeah, he has at least like the 320 mils, which have been doing a decent job at least scaring away the airplanes for a bit. So I think he's just investing more. He's just happy with that investment for now and invested in ground forces to push. And he is making that push with some of the Fallschirmjägers through the central north position. But Sherman and Staghound in a lovely spot to just pin down the Fallschirmjägers as they try to cross over the open here.
Now there's a Pack 40 being brought in. I thought it was going to be posted to the northern side to potentially engage that Staghound. It doesn't look like that's the case. I'm wondering if he's waiting for the Staghound to move southwest, maybe the Sherman even to some point to move southwest, and maybe to get a nice small ambush on it with the Jagdpanzer.
Yeah. Definitely be a good cool answer for sure. Yeah, it's just Shaun have that nice 13 to 11 now because Fallschirmjäger taking the hill, or I mean farm, and here comes the BF-109 on the Stag, or Spandu.
No, Spandau, yeah.
Spandau or Spand gone.
It certainly is. That heavy machine gun is made even heavier by the addition of 200 kilograms of bombs.
I wouldn't want to lug that round, Khan.
No, it's probably gonna put a real crick in your back, you know?
Yeah.
Halpate is moving to the southern side, taking really that town, and after the Kitty Hawk came in to blow... You see that shell crater that was right there? That used to be a Fallschirmjäger squad. So, I mean, my feeling is the southern side of this is going to be more or less going to remain well, it's going to be a Kiwi kind of section. Let's just say that the growing season down there is very good for Kiwis.
Indeed it is. Especially like far down south, it's been very quiet. I mean, Shaun only has a Puchin and a Fauchemir holding that entire flank, but same time, Gonzo, or possibly Gonzo, is not. He has a decent amount of forces to push, but of course he doesn't really know the enemy disposition.
No, he does not.
Well, a bit of a fight up north here between these infantry groups. You've got the 2nd Jagdpanzer deployed near that crossroads, yeah. You've got the Oplates and the flamethrower troops in a pretty good position surrounding the forest. Shaun's very much hauled into his little corner of that crossroads.
I think, ooh, this is scarier. 2 Wolverines being brought on in, and they're stopping just short of what that line of sight might be. This is going to be, I'm not going to say decisive, but I would say this could potentially change a great deal the balance of power here on the northern side.
Yeah, I mean, he also has the Sherman as well as backup, so if he can just kill up one Jagdpanzer, his infantry backed up with the 50 cals from the Wolverines will be enough to really take out Northern Hill for the time being. And seeing the Kitty Hawk strike coming in to, well, not kill the Fauchemir, just give him a bit of a scare.
Oh, look, at long last we have that weird Sagittario kind of Italian plane being brought on in.
Yep.
Not to say that thing actually doesn't have a scary amount of firepower, but we don't get to see him except for the first over here, so it's kind of fun to see him.
Yeah, and it's a very cool looking aircraft. It looks very, like, modern 30s look. Like diesel punk, I'd guess.
Forgive me for kind of shifting gears here, but the Southern Theater is going to be seeing a push from the 2nd New Zealand within the next couple of minutes, I should say. There's a 140 Mike barrage being called on down, and while that Pack 40 has just really gotten into the battle space, he's going to get plastered by this artillery strike.
Yeah. I feel like his artillery strike is just to soften him up first, as he doesn't have any forces to really counterattack immediately in position. So Shaun maybe. Oh no, he is actually going to be pushing.
Yeah. He had a 2nd squad of Oplates being brought out in just to the eastern side of that slope. Got taken up by the Pack 40, but yeah, the second that I saw those couple of Shermans, there's definitely a push coming in.
Yeah, those Stormtroopers are well completely gone now. I have no other actual infantry in that forest apart from that like 10-man Panther Strike squad with bloody hell, they got MGs and SMGs. Is pretty nasty.
Yes.
Yeah, he's gonna get kicked out of that forest pretty soon.
On a 2nd artillery strike, yeah, if there's anything left on that hillside, there soon won't be.
Yeah.
And concurrently, we're actually seeing a 2nd push moving west just to the northern side of that hill. I don't know that this one's going to have the strength to push through. I feel like the positions right now of the Germans right there, especially with that 20 mil, yeah, there's really only one option, and that's back away.
Yeah, and he really needs a Sherman and stat count support because Fallschirmjägers are just absolutely deadly, man. Like, they can just... It's come down back to SD44 levels, arguably more, where they would just annihilate Scrotch.
And this is... I want to like the Oplate squad. I sincerely do. Not just because of the name. I think the name's adorable, don't get me wrong. And I love seeing the Grease gun here. But the 8 Lee Enfields, the 2 Brens, there's just not as much firepower as you really need. And honestly, the failure to have any sort of committed AT certainly ranks them pretty weak in terms of what they can do. They're going to capture this Jagdpanzer, of course, which is going to make me look like a fool. But, I mean, that's the status that I'm used to right now.
Yeah, the Oplate are weird. I mean, they are good for the price, even though they have a pretty mediocre weapon loadout. It's mainly because it's a Trope-Man squad, and they also have the Raider trait, which does increase their survivability by a decent amount. But in this sort of matchup here against, like, bloody Fallschirmjägers, and considering Fallschirmjägers are 10 points more, and they have, like, ridiculously more firepower for 10 points more, and including AT, 2, like, really good machine guns, 4 semi-automatic rifles, and those FG-42s with 600-meter range and 15% accuracy are actually pretty comparable to MG-34s. They're just more accurate in exchange for having half the rate of fire.
And you know what? I'll be happy to dump the rate of fire. That means I stay in the fight longer.
Yeah. Like, the Fallschirmjägers are just really bloody good right now.
there is going to be a Taiga Fuhrer being brought on into this northern central position. Not the most active position, perhaps, for him. I think he's just being used here to maybe scare off infantry more than anything else. Maybe to engage the Sherman to the north. But right now, what the heck is pounding the back lines? Oh, geez, those are those 25-pounders. I didn't see these guys come in. They are just shelling the bejesus out on that northern flank.
Yeah, we are going to absolute pound town up here. That Flak 88 is not going to be in a good position with those 25-pound shells falling all around him. And yeah, Gonzo is doing a pretty good job up north, capturing that crossroad pretty securely now. I don't know if he's going to try any more offensive maneuvers for the time being, but he doesn't really need to.
I should say so. But we are into Phase B. In fact, we're halfway through Phase B. So this is where, I'm not going to say the rubber meets the road per se, but here's where it could maybe flip back around for Shaun, is that he's got a bit of an econ advantage, just a bit longer. But the second it hits C, we're gonna be buried in Shermans.
Yeah. So many Shermans. I mean, you do have a decent amount of Tigers, of course, on Shaun's side, but this is really a better map for Shermans than Tigers. I mean, those Tigers are going to be such high priority targets to the aircraft. Yeah, I mean, they can get a few kills here and there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of get blown up eventually. Because we all know, you know, those Tigers just die. Somehow, somewhere, a Tiger gets blown up, especially if it's Ritman.
Absolutely. Well, and let's not forget the fact that there's, of course, 4 Shermans for every Tiger.
Of course.
So.
It's a pretty expensive exchange rate. Fortunately,
Yeah,
Americans
but,
did a lot of credit.
It gets better once the Euro gets introduced. And actually, you know what? I don't know why I find this so fascinating. If you look where all the firepower is from the Kitty Hawk, you check out that windmill. I don't think I've ever noticed that windmill actually spins. I don't know why I'm so charmed by that, but that's so cute.
Oh yeah, the windmills in SD2 Con actually spin. In SD44 and previous Eugene games, windmills did not spin. So they finally figured out the map technology to have spinning windmills, but they haven't figured out yet how to make a map editor.
Well, you know what? The Kawaii crew approves, so I'll take it. Wolverines are actually having a field day to the north, and what do you expect? I mean, these guys, they're not Canadian, but they're just absolutely shellacking these Fallschirmjäger Pioneers. These Jagdpanzers technically can't see them still.
No, he's
not that I'm sure he'd really want to. But yeah, these Fallschirmjägers are getting absolutely destroyed. They cannot press forward over that roadside, and there's just enough light firepower to make bombing just a little bit ineffective. So.
Yep, and the Oblites managing to bug out of there before anything bad happens. And then just those 2 Wolverines will be enough to hold that crossroads. The Pioneers are forced to run for the trees and run for the hills. As, you know, with the armored support, he can't really do much, yeah. And the problem is he doesn't have medium tanks which he can use to try and engage, or light tanks as well. He's has to either deploy anti-tank guns, which is slow and not ideal in like Forest, or heavy tanks, which will just get blown up at CQC.
Well, don't worry. The Kiwis are bringing in their secret weapon.
Oh no.
The Mark V Stewart.
The scariest of tanks.
Oh yeah.
Only has 2 machine guns and not 3s, but I think it will perform just fine. Especially against such little AT up north, apart from that. I say Jagdpanzer, but the Poopchins are also being brought in too.
And yeah, those Poopchins are honestly quite terrifying.
Yes. Very, very much so. See the Wolverines already backing off because they know it's
It's not a Raketten. It's not a Raketten, but, you know, still quite terrifying. Looking else, we are seeing Oblites being brought to the central position, trying to reinforce where their comrades continue to get thrown back from that small farmstead. Wouldn't be surprised. There's no more artillery strikes. The last one got thrown to the west of there. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a secondary push happen here as we go into the 20-minute mark. Looking else. Tigers still rather underutilized. Oh no, he's using the Fallschirmjägers as a stalking horse. Okay.
Yeah, God. Yeah, those pioneers are just not having a good time up north. They're gonna run into the flamethrower troop. One of them gets surrendered. The other one's gonna make it out, I believe, just in the nick of time. But yeah, we are finally into C phase here, and this is where Gonzo, you know, he has that 20-point advantage now, so he should be doing pretty good in terms of long game.
Options. Come on, guys. Get in the game. There we go. They did kill one steward, but that's not really worth all the investment on that one. Yikes.
I do like this push is during Shaun is doing in like this northern hill, going around the flank here, capping that flag with just a few FS pioneers. He doesn't really have much here to really hold onto the point as a Sherman, providing some good firepower to stress him out a bit. But still, it was a decent attempt.
And that's the kind of thing you need to be doing, though. I mean, the second New Zealand, we've sung the praises about how the infantry is just, you can just throw them in wave upon wave, or, you know, more appropriately, phalanx upon phalanx of troops forward, you know, being hoplites and all that. But I feel like they're not really set up too much for a defense in depth. And maybe that's just my own kind of proclivity kind of showing up here. But what would you say?
Yeah, definitely New Zealand is much more of a division where you do want to be constantly aggressive and just try to make those plays. I mean, you might as well. The Hoplites do have the Raider trait, which definitely benefits quite a lot in the aggressive maneuvers and flanking around and sneaking up on enemy anti-tank guns. You know, you don't have a whole lot of great suppressive firepower, especially if you don't have Maoris. But it sure get pretty interesting for Shaun, because in his C phase, he doesn't have Fallschirmjägers. He only has just regular Grenadiers, which aren't as great as the Fallschirmjägers, of course. So I think if this comes down to attrition warfare, I mean, Gonzo will just be able to win out of his 2 C phase cards of Hoplites.
A Tiger is down. Tiger destroyed
yeah.
to the northern side. Yeah, Wolverine somehow killed a Tiger within a couple different rounds there. And the German position looks rather tenuous.
It really does. Yeah, those Wolverines have been extremely clutch in this northern position. Now they're going to be pushing on at Jagdpanzer. And this is where it's going to come down to the tank problem. I mean, Shaun just doesn't have, you know, good amount of medium or light tanks to really counter Gonzo's spam of tanks.
True. That is true. But maybe what he's trying to do is maybe he's trying to make them waste all of their HE ammo. So that he can send infantry after. I don't know.
And all the 50 cows.
It's a bold move, Cotton. He's also got bombers heading 2 different directions. I'm not sure what that one in the back was going for. Alright. Not sure what that was going on with that. But, northern side, we are seeing prep for another push. 5, 6, 7 squads. 7 squads? Jeez, yeah. There's a major push happening up here.
Including the supply truck as well. But Shaun has made like a decent push in his northern central position, just barely capturing that flag, which he is going to lose now. But it's a decent spot at least. I mean, really, Shaun's benefit is just try to hold on to those few areas where there's like a no man's land between him and the enemy, as he can take advantage of his heavy tanks, as well as just suppressive firepower of the Fallschirmjäger.
An oddly absurd line of sight. He's 88 right now. Taken out a steward from about a jillion and a half miles away. So well done there. But
yeah, that's a really tight line of sight. Yeah, like right through the buildings in the town.
Well, this Pack 40 that's up here too is going to get himself, I think, a little bit of opportunity to play with these oncoming Hoplite troops.
And in the center hill position, we did see Kidder Hawks do a few bomb and run strikes on the German positions. That one Tiger really close to the edge here, taking some 17-pounder fire, and he does go down. Another Tiger bites the dust.
Which is a bit of a problem, because at that point, that's 25% of his Tigers dead in the last couple of minutes here, so can't be losing troops with that kind of rapidity. Spitfire to the north. These guys, we don't see them quite as much. They feel like the Kitty Hawk gets a little more usage here, but the Spitfire up here has an absurd bombing load. Something like 500 or 600 kilograms of bombs, I almost feel like.
That's not bad at all. Yeah, we're seeing this northern push as well from what might be Gonzo. I'm still trying to confirm it with my sources live. And there's a lot of oplates, but as we're seeing, Shaun has managed to get a good long-range position, and he's managing to hold. I mean, once those oplates get out of the forest, there's Jagdpanzers, Tigers, the Pack 40, and they just can't really do too much at that range, unless they just bomb that to hell and back. Which is what they're going to be doing with artillery.
When we went to the south, we see a bunch of grenadiers being brought on in to stabilize the, not lost position, but a certainly more difficult position currently facing the first Fallschirmjäger. And yikes, there's 3 more 25-pounders being set up in another battery.
Shit. That is... I still find it funny. I mean, we've been covering, like, its meta for a little bit now. But I just find it odd seeing people use this much artillery in 1v1 still. Like, it felt like it's been, like, what, a year and a half where we just barely saw artillery guns being used in 1v1s. And now we're just seeing actual, like, field batteries of field guns actually being used.
Well, I think the reason for that is you know what, they were set up to do infantry equipment 1 for so long, and then the factories got switched, so they lost a lot of efficiency. So now we're just now getting this production lines back up to where they should.
It's like Hearts of Iron 4, we have to reshift the civilian factories into military factories and get the serialized production up and running.
And if we're kind of looking over here, we can kind of notice that a number of Fallschirmjägers, Grenadiers, kind of setting back up. And like you said, those artillery batteries are just absolutely pounding them. I'm not entirely sure what the heck they're going to try to accomplish with this.
Yeah, and those artillery batteries are definitely going to be a very rough rock crawl. And of course, the nice thing of the 25 pounds isn't it being a Western Front Allied division. Got radios for days, so it's going to be a lot of corrected shots. But really, you just stress out the Fallschirmjägers with the artillery. They can't really do much, and then the tanks are unsupported, and you can easily just go up and blow up a Tiger with a good old side shot.
Wait a second. We have mortars coming in 27 minutes into the game. I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to accomplish with that. I think they're going to be devastatingly counter-batteried at any possible turn. And that brave Kitty Hawk was brought in just to start pinpointing, I think, some of that anti-air. So,
yikes. We have quite a few ATH out on the field, and of course all of those 20 mils. But same thing to BF-109, managing to get its load off at least, but you know, just decent amount of allied anti-air to stress it out a little bit. But yeah, the Kitty Hawks are not having a good time anymore. Too much German AA.
Oh jeez, this is weird. TOT barrage is going to hit the mortars barely get unloaded and they're already stressed completely. The poor artillery commander tries to get to the front lines, but he should have stayed 24 years back from where he was, from those front lines. Where he belongs.
Yep. Yeah, not born in a good decade, that's for sure.
Probably not.
No, not one bit. Yeah, things have evened out to a 12-12, but definitely feels like Gonzo does have the good map and just the attrition advantage. I mean, Shaun's, slowly losing the Fallschirmjägers and having to replace with the Grenadiers. And the Grenadiers aren't terrible, but it's a much fairer fight for the oplates.
It certainly seems to be the case. Hey, the ME410 makes an appearance to just obliterate 2 oplates. Nice to see him. Glad we talked. But not really sure that that's going to turn the tide here. Indeed, Jagdpanzer against Wolverine. Wolverine's going to get first shot. Possibly even second. Oh no.
Oh, he's shooting at the Grenadiers.
Wow, they really can't see each other.
No, it's just literally like 5 meters or so, and it should be line of sight, but...
There we go. And the Wolverine prudently backs away, because you don't want to knife fight the Jagdpanzer if you don't need to.
Yeah. Shaun has managed to do a nice little counter-attack up north and secure that crossroad with his Grenadier forces. I mean, there's not a whole lot of Greeks and New Zealand guys left up here, so it should be a pretty secure location for him now.
It'll be secure for the time being. But like you said, it's a much fairer fight having all of these, even field engineers and Oplites against the Grenadiers. Grenadiers don't quite have the same obliterating firepower that they used to. And geez, what the heck just went down there? What aircraft was that?
Was it on the Allied side?
I honestly just saw it come down over here on the German side, so I'm imagining it might have been one of the BF-109s.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that would end up being the poor victim here. It's just I'm just seeing a lot of the radar icon because, well, when you have 2 cards of C-phase Oplites, you're not gonna be running low.
No, you're not. No, you are not. This artillery's insane to me. Like, I want to pretend that the first Fallschirmjäger can stand up to this firepower, but let's be fair. It's going to be a tough shell to do so.
Indeed it is. And third Fallschirmjäger, I mean, it's the Fallschirmjäger division. It's not like it's really brimming with artillery units to begin with, especially Shaun's deployment of only just the 81mm mortars and then the leaders. Definitely much more relying on the aircraft to beat the artillery.
And that would have been possible too, but he would have had to have been able to take out some of those anti-air positions much sooner than he did.
Yeah, and the Jagdpanzer up north is bailed out by the Wolverine here, so we are seeing a counterpush here from potentially Gonzo. And yeah, without Jagdpanzer down, there's not really much anti-tank apart from the Plank 40, which will just get killed by infantry here, so he should go back into Gonzo's favor.
Very much. So 13-11, it is going to continue on here, and Shaun, sees the writing on the wall and says, you know what? You may be Gonzo, you may not be Gonzo, but I for sure am done today.
Oh, holy crap, the KD. That's like a 1500 difference, right? Yeah.
But part of that's just because any single time a Fallschirmjäger dies, that's 10 points extra.
Yeah. Yeah, and also just all the heavy tanks as well. But it's actually quite surprising that that's like quite a blowout. It's almost double the KD, of course, for Gonzo, yeah. But Shaun held it pretty well. Like, the points were pretty even Stevens for most of the game, but, it was just that snowball effect of that Juggernaut income coming in clutch and the more focus on C-phase of Gonzo's deck, which helped secure the victory.
It certainly seemed to be the case. Funny thing is, the most important player over here, the most important party, let's call it, on the Allies' side was actually that MacArthur 140 off map. And just because he pounded all those Stormtroopers into the dirt. Other than that, I think there's one Oplite squad's got a couple of kills. Sherman's got a couple of small kills. And I guess Baker taking out a Tiger and the Jagdpanzer in the north. But other than that, no one's really a standout.
No, pretty, everyone kind of did their little bit.
Certainly does seem to be the case.
Losses.
Yes, sir?
I know, it's just like you got the Jagdpanzer. That's it, losses is like pretty anticlimactic.
Yes.
Arguably more so, which makes sense due to the worst KD.
But I was going to ask you, any thoughts to kind of bring this back together?
I know, it's a pretty interesting match. I mean, both of these divisions are from the, the same DLC. But yeah, the first Fallschirmjäger just does not perform well on that map. The lack of medium and light tanks on the CQC map. And yeah, that really screwed him over. And also, I don't know, it's interesting to see like Juggernaut income actually winning in a 1v1. I'd be curious to see if, when the league continues through, if people start following suit and try out using that Juggernaut. Because they only lose out 20 points in B phase per tick in exchange for getting 20 points in C phase. And if a match goes on longer than 30 minutes, you're getting more points per value of that Juggernaut income.
Well, plus, at that point, you can't stop them. Why? Because it's the Juggernaut, bitch. Like, you gotta play it. You gotta play it for the memes, if nothing else. And honestly, anybody who plays the Juggernaut, I'm gonna start rooting for. So. Yeah.
So it's a very curious matchup, yeah, and I'll be curious to see if that income does, receive more of that in the future.
So would I. But regardless, well played to Shaun, even in defeat, acquitted himself very well. As to the other player, whether or not he was Gonzo, we'll never know. But good to see a nice strong play from the second New Zealand as well. I know they haven't had a great showing thus far on our channels. Any final thoughts, sir?
Nope.
Well, folks, come back on Thursday. You see another riveting one-on-one matchup. Until then, though, I'm Connell Work.
I'm Ringru. Take it easy.